What happens when a moment meant to be light-hearted television suddenly shifts into something nobody in the studio expects? The lights are bright, the audience is smiling, and the cameras of the view are rolling as they always do on a normal morning. But on this particular day, something in the air feels different, like the calm right before a storm. Before we dive into this unbelievable moment, make sure to subscribe to Live Narratives, like the video, and drop a comment below telling us where you're watching from. Because stories like this, they don't happen every day. The applause begins the second the announcer says the name. Please welcome Ryan Gosling. The crowd erupts. Ryan walks onto the stage with that familiar half-smile, the same effortless charm that made audiences fall for him in films like La La Land. He waves casually, shaking hands with the hosts as he reaches the panel. At the table sit the women who've built the reputation of the show, the sharp wit of Joy Behar, the calm authority of Whoopi Goldberg, and the attentive gaze of Sunny Hostin. Everything looks perfectly normal. But sometimes the most unexpected moments begin that way. Ryan takes a seat, adjusting slightly as the applause fades. The cameras zoom in. The producers in the control room watch their monitors. Millions of viewers at home lean closer to their screens. Joy leans forward first, smiling, but there's a curious spark in her eyes. "Well, Ryan," she says with a playful tone, "you've been busy. Movies, directing, producing. Is there anything you don't do?" Ryan laughs softly. "I try not to cook," he replies. "My family would probably prefer I didn't experiment in the kitchen." The audience chuckles. The energy is warm, relaxed. Whoopi nods approvingly. "Smart man." Joy taps her mug lightly on the table, watching Ryan with a slightly raised eyebrow. "But seriously," she continues, "you've been in Hollywood a long time now. You've seen the industry change, sometimes for better, sometimes for worse." Ryan nods slowly. "That's true," he says. There's a pause, one of those small, almost invisible pauses that television audiences rarely notice. But inside the studio, the producers notice. Joy leans back in her chair. "And you've also been pretty vocal lately about certain things happening in the industry." Ryan folds his hands calmly. "I just try to speak honestly when something matters." Another polite wave of applause rises from the audience. Sunny glances toward Joy briefly, as if sensing something about to happen. Joy smiles again, but this time, the smile is thinner. "Well," she says, "honesty is great, unless it turns into lecturing people." The audience laughs awkwardly. Ryan's smile stays on his face, but something subtle changes in his eyes. "What do you mean?" he asks gently. Joy shrugs. "Oh, she says. Actors sometimes get a little dramatic about politics and social issues. Some people just want to watch movies, not get a speech." A few scattered claps come from the audience. Others stay silent. Ryan nods slowly, considering the words. "I think people can do both," he says carefully. "Enjoy stories and still care about the world they live in." Joy tilts her head. "Sure," she replies. "But sometimes it feels like celebrities forget that regular people might see things differently." The room grows quieter. Whoopi watches closely now. Ryan shifts slightly in his chair. "I don't think anyone should pretend they have all the answers," he says calmly. "But I also don't think staying silent helps." Joy chuckles. "Ah," she says. "So, you're one of the speak up no matter what people." Ryan smiles politely. "I guess I'm one of the try to do the right thing people." The audience murmurs again. Sunny glances between them. Joy leans forward again, resting her elbows on the table. "But here's the thing," she says. "When actors start telling people how to think, it can feel a little condescending." There it is. The word hangs in the air like a sudden crack of thunder. Condescending. The studio goes still. Ryan's smile fades just slightly. For a moment, nobody speaks. Even the audience seems unsure whether to laugh, clap, or stay silent. In the control room, a producer whispers nervously, "Did she really just say that?" Back at the table, Ryan finally responds. He doesn't sound angry, but the tone of his voice has changed. "I'm not trying to tell anyone how to think," he says quietly. Joy raises an eyebrow. "No." Ryan shakes his head. "I'm trying to start conversations." A few audience members clap. Joy folds her arms. "Well," she says, Conversations usually go two ways. Ryan meets her gaze directly now. They should. The temperature in the room has shifted. What started as a friendly celebrity interview is beginning to feel like something else entirely. Whoopi clears her throat lightly, sensing the tension. But Joy isn't finished. She taps her fingers on the desk slowly. "Let me ask you something, Ryan," she says. Her voice is calm, almost too calm. "Do you ever worry that Hollywood voices are getting louder, while everyday voices are getting ignored?" The audience leans forward. Ryan takes a breath. For the first time since he walked onto the set, he looks genuinely serious. "I worry about people not listening to each other," he says. Joy smiles again. But this time the smile carries a challenge. "Then maybe," she says, "today's a good day to listen." The studio is silent now. Even the audience seems to sense that something unexpected is about to unfold. Ryan nods slowly. "Okay," he says. "Let's talk." And in that single moment, between a seasoned talk show host known for her blunt honesty and a Hollywood star who refuses to back down, the conversation is no longer just an interview. It's becoming a confrontation. And everyone in the room can feel it. The cameras keep rolling. The audience holds its breath. And what happens next will make this episode of The View one people talk about for a long time. Because the next question Joy asks changes everything. The silence after Ryan's last words lingers longer than anyone expects. In the studio of The View, silence is rare. The show thrives on overlapping voices, laughter, quick reactions. But now the audience sits almost perfectly still, sensing that something unusual is unfolding. Across the table, Joy Behar studies Ryan Gosling with a look that's half curiosity, half challenge. Ryan leans back slightly in his chair. His posture is relaxed, but there's a focused stillness in his expression now. The easygoing charm he walked on stage with hasn't disappeared. It's just been replaced by something quieter, something more deliberate. Joy finally breaks the silence. "Well, Ryan," she says, tapping her mug lightly against the desk, "since we're talking about listening, let me ask you something directly." The audience shifts in their seats. Ryan nods. "Go ahead." Joy tilts her head slightly. "You've become one of those actors who speaks out a lot," she says. "Social issues, politics, the direction of the country. You've done interviews, speeches, panels." Ryan doesn't interrupt. He simply listens. "But here's what I wonder," Joy continues. "Do you ever worry that people see it as Hollywood preaching?" A ripple moves through the audience. Some people nod. Others glance at each other. At the end of the table, Whoopi Goldberg watches carefully, her chin resting against her hand. Ryan smiles faintly, though it's not quite the playful grin from earlier. "I think it depends how it's done," he says calmly. Joy raises an eyebrow. "Meaning?" Ryan folds his hands together. "Meaning if someone is talking at people, yeah, that probably feels like preaching." A few people in the audience clap softly. Joy's lips curl into a small smirk. "But you don't think you do that?" Ryan shrugs lightly. "I try not to." Joy leans forward again. "But you still think celebrities should be speaking about these things?" Ryan pauses before answering. The cameras zoom slightly closer. "I think anyone with a platform has a responsibility to use it carefully," he says. The word responsibility hangs in the air. Joy hears it immediately. "Responsibility," she repeats, her tone sharpening just a little. "That's an interesting choice of words." Ryan nods. "I think influence comes with consequences." A few audience members murmur approval. Joy glances towards Sunny Hostin, who watches quietly but attentively. Then Joy turns back to Ryan. "But let me push back on that," she says. "Because a lot of viewers feel like celebrities live in a completely different world." Ryan doesn't respond right away. Joy continues. "They're rich, famous, surrounded by people who agree with them. And then they go on TV and start talking about how everyone else should think." The audience reacts again, some clapping, others clearly uncomfortable. Ryan's expression tightens slightly. Not anger, more like careful thought. "I don't think anyone should tell people what to think," he says. Joy quickly fires back. "But that's exactly what it sounds like sometimes." The tension grows. Ryan glances briefly toward Whoopi, who gives him a subtle nod as if encouraging him to keep going. Ryan turns back to Joy. I think stories matter, he says quietly. Joy frowns slightly. Stories? Ryan nods. Movies, interviews, conversations, they're all ways of telling stories about who we are. Joy leans back. Okay, she says slowly. But here's the problem. When someone like you says something, millions of people hear it. Ryan smiles slightly. That's true. Joy crosses her arms. So, don't you think that kind of influence should come with a little humility? The audience reacts again. Ryan tilts his head thoughtfully. I agree with that, he says. Joy looks surprised. For the first time in the conversation, she pauses. Ryan continues. I think humility is essential. The audience claps. But Joy isn't satisfied yet. Then let me ask you something else, she says. Ryan nods again. Joy's voice softens, but the edge remains. Do you think Hollywood actually listens to people outside its bubble? The question lands like a stone in still water. Ryan takes a slow breath. For a moment, the cameras capture something deeper in his expression. Something reflective. I think sometimes we do, he says. Joy immediately responds. And sometimes, Ryan looks directly at her. Sometimes we fail. The audience murmurs again. Even Joy seems slightly caught off guard by the honesty. Sunny leans forward now. That's actually a pretty honest answer, she says. Ryan nods toward her politely. Joy studies him closely. You know, she says slowly, most celebrities who come on this show try very hard not to say anything controversial. Ryan chuckles softly. That sounds exhausting. Laughter breaks out across the audience. Even Whoopi smiles. Joy smirks. Trust me, she says. For some of them, it is. Ryan relaxes slightly again. But Joy isn't finished. She taps the table again and leans in just a little closer. However, she says carefully, there's something I'm curious about. Ryan raises an eyebrow. What's that? Joy's tone becomes more direct now. You talk about listening, she says. But when people criticize Hollywood culture, do you actually hear them? The room becomes quiet again. Ryan blinks slowly. Joy continues. Because some people feel like if they disagree with celebrities, they get labeled immediately. The audience grows tense. Ryan shifts in his chair slightly. That shouldn't happen, he says. Joy raises an eyebrow. But it does. Ryan nods slowly. Yes, sometimes it does. Joy studies him for a long moment. Then she delivers the line that makes the audience collectively inhale. So tell me something honestly, Ryan, she says. Her voice is calm, but piercing. Do you think Hollywood is actually open to disagreement or just applause? The studio falls completely silent. Ryan doesn't answer right away. He looks down at the table briefly, thinking. Then he lifts his gaze back toward Joy. And when he finally speaks, his voice carries a quiet seriousness that immediately changes the energy in the room. Can I be honest? Joy leans back. That's what we're here for. Ryan nods slowly. Then I think the problem isn't just Hollywood. A few audience members shift in their seats. Joy narrows her eyes slightly. Oh. Ryan's voice stays calm. I think the problem is that everyone has stopped listening. The audience murmurs loudly now. Joy studies him, intrigued. Ryan continues. People pick sides. They shout. They defend their group. He gestures gently toward the table. And then nobody actually hears the other person anymore. The room grows quiet again. Joy folds her hands together slowly. Well, she says with a faint smile. That's a pretty big claim. Ryan nods. It is. Joy leans forward one more time. And if that's true, she says, then maybe we should test it. Ryan looks curious. How? Joy's smile sharpens. Let's see what happens, she says, when someone at this table disagrees with you completely. The audience gasps softly. Whoopi's eyebrows lift. Sunny glances between them. Ryan's expression remains calm. But everyone in the studio can feel it now. The conversation is no longer just thoughtful debate. It's becoming something far more intense. And Joy Behar is just getting started. For a brief moment, the studio feels like it's holding its breath. The cameras of the view continue to glide silently across the table, capturing every expression, every shift in posture, every flicker of tension between Ryan Gosling and Joy Behar. The audience senses something unusual now. What began as a thoughtful discussion has slowly turned into a moment that feels unpredictable, almost volatile. Joy leans back in her chair, crossing one leg over the other, studying Ryan like a chess player studying the board. Ryan remains composed, but the playful smile he entered the studio with is gone. In its place is something calmer, steadier. Joy finally breaks the silence. "All right," she says, lifting her mug slightly before placing it back down. "You said everyone has stopped listening." Ryan nods. "Yes." Joy tilts her head. "So, let's test that." The audience murmurs softly. At the end of the table, Whoopi Goldberg watches with a knowing look, as if she's seen moments like this unfold before. Joy leans forward again. "You're a very successful actor," she begins. "People love your movies. They admire you." Ryan shrugs lightly. "I'm grateful for that." But Joy continues, "When someone like you talks about big social issues, some people feel like it's coming from a place that's disconnected from their reality." Ryan listens carefully. Joy presses further. "You live in a different world than most viewers." Ryan nods slowly. "In some ways, yes." Joy raises an eyebrow. "In some ways." Ryan exhales softly before answering. "I still worry about the same things everyone else does," he says. "Family. The future. The kind of world we're leaving behind." The audience applauds lightly. Joy doesn't clap. Instead, she studies him closely. But worrying about the future and experiencing everyday struggles are different things. The tension sharpens. Ryan tilts his head slightly. "That's fair," he says. Joy seems almost surprised by the quick agreement, but she keeps going. "So, when Hollywood voices dominate conversations about how the world should change," she says, "people sometimes feel like their own experiences are being pushed aside." Ryan nods slowly. "I understand why someone might feel that way." Sunny leans in slightly now. Sunny Hostin glances toward Joy before speaking. "But Ryan isn't exactly saying people shouldn't speak for themselves," she adds carefully. Joy lifts her hand gently. "I know that." Then she looks directly back at Ryan. "But here's where I disagree with you," she says plainly. The audience grows quiet again. Ryan sits a little straighter. Joy's voice is calm, but there's steel underneath it. "You said the problem is that everyone stopped listening," she says. "But sometimes people are listening." Ryan waits. Joy continues. "They're listening to celebrities, politicians, commentators, everyone telling them how the world works." She pauses. "And they're tired of it." A ripple of applause spreads through part of the audience. Ryan watches calmly. Joy taps the table lightly. "So maybe the real problem," she says, "is that famous voices have gotten so loud that ordinary voices feel drowned out." The room grows tense. Ryan doesn't respond immediately. The silence stretches. Then he leans forward slightly. "I hear what you're saying," he says. Joy raises an eyebrow. "But..." Ryan's tone stays measured. "But I don't think the solution is telling people with platforms to stay quiet." A few audience members clap. Joy smirks. "Of course you don't." Ryan smiles faintly. "I think the solution is making space for more voices." Joy gestures around the studio. "You mean like this?" Ryan glances briefly at the audience. "Yes, exactly like this." The audience applauds louder now. Joy's expression tightens, just slightly. "Except," she says slowly, "this show doesn't represent everyone either." Ryan nods. "That's true." Joy crosses her arms. "So maybe the bigger question is this." Ryan waits. Joy's voice lowers just a little, making the moment feel more intense. "When celebrities talk about change, are they really inviting conversation?" The audience leans forward again. Or, Joy finishes, "are they just expecting applause?" A sharp murmur ripples through the studio. Ryan's jaw tightens just slightly, but he stays calm. "I don't expect applause," he says quietly. Joy tilts her head. "No." Ryan shakes his head. "I expect disagreement." That answer catches the audience off guard. Joy narrows her eyes slightly. "Then you must be enjoying today." The crowd laughs nervously. Ryan chuckles softly. "I actually am." The room relaxes for half a second. But Joy suddenly leans forward again. And if someone told you you're wrong, she asks. Ryan doesn't hesitate. I'd want to know why. Joy smiles thinly. Okay. She pauses. Then she says something that makes the entire audience go still. Then let me tell you why I think you're wrong. Even the producers in the control room look up. Ryan folds his hands calmly. I'm listening. Joy gestures lightly toward the audience. You say everyone should speak up, she says. But when celebrities do it constantly, it starts to feel less like conversation and more like a lecture. Ryan's expression grows serious. Joy continues. And when people push back, they get labeled. The audience murmurs again. Ryan nods slowly. That does happen sometimes. Joy immediately responds. More than sometimes. Ryan pauses. He looks around the studio. At the audience. At Sunny. At Whoopi. Then back at Joy. You're right, he says quietly. The admission sends a ripple through the room. Joy didn't expect that. Ryan continues. But that's exactly why conversations like this matter. Joy leans back again. Oh, really? Ryan nods. Yes. He gestures gently toward the table. Because disagreement shouldn't end the conversation. A wave of applause spreads across the audience. Joy watches him closely, clearly evaluating every word. Then she says something that shifts the entire tone of the moment. You know what, Ryan? What? Joy smiles slightly. I actually respect that answer. The tension softens slightly. Ryan smiles back. Thank you. But Joy raises one finger. However, the audience groans softly. Ryan laughs. Here it comes. Joy nods. You're calm, she says. You're thoughtful. You're saying the right things. Ryan waits. Joy's voice becomes sharper again. But I still think Hollywood forgets something very important. Ryan tilts his head. What's that? Joy leans forward slowly. That being famous doesn't automatically make someone wise. The audience reacts loudly. Some clap. Some gasp. Ryan doesn't flinch. He simply nods. You're absolutely right. Joy blinks. She didn't expect that answer either. Ryan continues calmly. But it also doesn't mean someone should stay silent. The audience erupts into applause. Whoopi smiles broadly now. Sunny nods. Joy watches Ryan for a long moment. Then she chuckles softly. Well, she says, I'll give you this. Ryan raises an eyebrow. You're not backing down. Ryan grins slightly. I thought we were having a conversation. Joy leans back again. Oh, we are. She pauses. Then she adds quietly. But trust me, the audience hasn't heard the most interesting part yet. Ryan's smile fades slightly. Meaning? Joy glances toward Whoopi, then back at Ryan. Meaning, she says, there's one question we haven't asked you yet. The studio goes silent again. And when Joy finally reveals that question, it will send the entire panel and the audience into complete shock. The silence that settles across the studio feels heavier than before. The cameras sweep slowly across the table of the view, capturing the anticipation in the room. The audience leans forward in their seats. The producers in the control booth are whispering to each other through headsets. Even the hosts seem to sense that the conversation has reached a point where one wrong word could tip everything over. Across the table, Joy Behar watches Ryan Gosling with that familiar mix of curiosity and mischief she's known for. Ryan sits calmly, hands folded, waiting. Joy finally breaks the silence. You asked what question we haven't asked yet, she says slowly. Ryan nods. Well, Joy continues, let's talk about something a little more personal. The audience murmurs softly. Ryan raises an eyebrow, but he doesn't look worried. Okay. Joy leans forward, resting her arms on the desk. You've built a reputation as someone thoughtful, she says. Someone who speaks carefully about the world, about people, about responsibility. Ryan listens quietly. But sometimes, Joy adds, people who talk about responsibility forget to look in the mirror. The audience reacts with a soft gasp. Ryan tilts his head slightly. I think everyone should look in the mirror, he replies calmly. Joy smiles faintly. Good answer. Then she says the question that instantly changes the energy in the room. So tell me, Ryan, do you think Hollywood actors actually live by the same standards they talk about? The studio goes silent. Even the audience seems unsure how to react. Ryan doesn't respond right away. He takes a breath, clearly thinking. At the end of the table, Whoopi Goldberg glances toward Joy, with a look that almost says you really went there. Ryan finally speaks. I think some do, he says. Joy raises an eyebrow. And the others? Ryan smiles slightly. Some of us are still trying to figure it out. A few audience members laugh softly. Joy nods, but she presses further. Because here's what critics say, she continues. They say Hollywood loves to talk about fairness, equality, empathy. Ryan listens. But behind the scenes, Joy adds, it's still a business built on power and money. The audience murmurs again. Ryan doesn't argue. Instead, he nods slowly. That's true. Joy blinks. You agree with that? Ryan shrugs slightly. It would be dishonest not to. Sunny leans forward again. Sunny Hostin watches the exchange closely. But that doesn't mean people in the industry can't try to make things better, she says. Ryan nods toward her. Exactly. Joy taps the desk again, clearly thinking about where to take the conversation next. You know, she says slowly, I've interviewed a lot of celebrities over the years. Ryan chuckles lightly. I've heard. The audience laughs. Joy continues. And many of them come here with the same message. They talk about hope, progress, changing the world. She gestures around the studio. But sometimes viewers wonder if those messages are real or just good publicity. The room grows tense again. Ryan's expression becomes serious. I can't speak for everyone, he says. Joy leans forward. But you can speak for yourself. Ryan nods. Yes. Joy's voice softens slightly, but the intensity remains. So, here's the real question. Ryan watches her carefully. When you speak about these issues, is it because you truly believe it? She pauses. Or because Hollywood expects you to? The audience gasps softly. Even the crew members behind the cameras seem to freeze. Ryan exhales slowly. For a moment, he looks down at the table. Then he looks back up. And when he speaks, his voice is quieter, but far more powerful than before. I believe it. The audience applauds immediately. But Ryan raises his hand slightly. Not because anyone told me to, he continues. The room quiets again. Ryan glances briefly at the audience before looking back at Joy. I believe it because I have kids, he says. The tone shifts instantly. Suddenly the conversation feels more personal, more real. Ryan continues. When you become a parent, you start thinking differently about the future. Joy listens carefully now. Ryan's voice remains calm but emotional. You start asking yourself what kind of world they're going to grow up in. The audience is silent. Ryan gestures gently with his hands. And if I have a platform, even a small one, I think it would be irresponsible not to use it. A wave of applause spreads across the studio. Joy watches him for a long moment. Then she nods slowly. That's probably the most honest thing anyone said here all morning. Ryan smiles faintly. But Joy isn't done yet. She leans forward one more time. You know what's interesting, though? Ryan tilts his head. What? Joy glances briefly at Whoopi and Sunny before returning her gaze to Ryan. You came in here expecting a normal interview. Ryan laughs. That was my first mistake. The audience laughs loudly. Joy smiles. But instead you ended up in a debate. Ryan nods. And I'm okay with that. Joy studies him again. You didn't get angry. Ryan shrugs. I didn't see a reason to. Joy raises an eyebrow. Most celebrities would have. Ryan smiles slightly. Well, I'm not most celebrities. The audience applauds again. Even Whoopi claps this time. Joy leans back in her chair, finally relaxing for the first time since the conversation started. Well, she says with a small grin. I'll give you credit for one thing. Ryan looks curious. What's that? Joy chuckles softly. You held your ground. Ryan nods. I thought that's what conversations were for. The audience applauds again, louder this time. But as the applause fades, Whoopi finally speaks. She looks between Joy and Ryan with an amused expression. You two realize something, right? Joy glances at her. What? Whoopi smiles. This is probably the most intense interview we've had all week. The audience erupts into laughter and applause. Ryan chuckles. Joy shakes her head with a smile. But as the cameras continue rolling, something unexpected happens. Someone in the audience stands up and begins clapping louder than everyone else. Then another person stands. And another. Within seconds, the entire studio audience rises to their feet. A standing ovation. Ryan looks surprised. Joy glances at the crowd, clearly not expecting that reaction. But outside the studio, millions of viewers watching at home are already reacting in their own way. Clips of the conversation are spreading across social media. Comment sections are exploding. News outlets are preparing headlines. Because what just happened on The View isn't going to stay inside the studio. By the time the episode ends, the entire internet will be talking about it. The applause inside the studio doesn't fade quickly. In fact, it grows louder. One person in the audience stands, then another, and within seconds the entire crowd is on its feet. The sudden standing ovation ripples across the studio of The View, surprising even the production crew. The cameras swing wide to capture the moment. At the table, Ryan Gosling looks genuinely caught off guard. His shoulders relax slightly as he glances around the room, clearly not expecting this kind of reaction from what began as a tense conversation. Across from him, Joy Behar watches the crowd with a mixture of amusement and disbelief. Well, she says into her microphone, raising her eyebrows, I guess the audience has spoken. The crowd laughs and continues clapping. Ryan smiles awkwardly, shaking his head a little. You didn't have to do that, he says toward the audience. Someone near the front shouts, Yes, we did. The room erupts with laughter again. At the end of the table, Whoopi Goldberg leans forward with a grin. You know, she says, this might be the first time someone came here expecting to promote a movie and ended up moderating a philosophy debate. The audience laughs loudly. Ryan chuckles. That wasn't in the briefing notes. Joy turns toward him with a playful smirk. Oh, please, she says. You handled it like a pro. Ryan raises an eyebrow. Is that a compliment? Joy shrugs. Don't get used to it. The audience laughs again, but something about the atmosphere has changed. The earlier tension has dissolved into something more reflective, almost respectful. Sunny leans toward the table. Sunny Hostin smiles warmly at Ryan. I think what people appreciated, she says, is that you didn't dodge the questions. Ryan nods slightly. I didn't feel like I needed to. Joy gestures toward him again. And you didn't get defensive, she adds. Ryan shrugs. Well, disagreement isn't the same thing as an attack. A few audience members clap again. Joy nods slowly, clearly thinking about that line. You know, she says, people at home might be surprised by this conversation. Ryan smiles faintly. Why? Joy gestures toward the cameras. Because television arguments usually turn into shouting matches. Ryan glances around the table. I'm glad this one didn't. Whoopi chuckles. Give it time. The audience bursts into laughter again. But even as the laughter settles, the control room is already buzzing. Behind the scenes, producers are watching their monitors as live clips from the show begin circulating online. Producers whisper to each other as phones light up with alerts. One assistant leans toward another and whispers quietly. It's already trending. And she's right. Outside the studio, the internet is moving faster than anyone inside realizes. Short clips of the conversation between Ryan and Joy are spreading across social platforms. Viewers are replaying the moment when Joy asked if Hollywood actors live by the same standards they preach. Others are sharing Ryan's calm response about responsibility and listening. Within minutes, hashtags connected to The View and Ryan Gosling begin climbing the trending charts. Comment sections explode with opinions. Some viewers praise Ryan's composure. Others applaud Joy for asking difficult questions. Some simply say they're shocked the debate stayed so calm. Back in the studio, however, the hosts are beginning to wrap up the segment. Joy glances toward the camera again. Well, Ryan, she says, I think we accidentally turned your interview into a national conversation. Ryan laughs softly. I'm starting to realize that. Joy tilts her head. So tell me honestly, did you expect today to go like this? Ryan shakes his head. Not even a little. The audience laughs again. Sonny leans forward. But are you glad it did? Ryan pauses for a moment. He looks at the hosts, then at the audience. Yes, he says simply. The answer feels sincere. Joy studies him carefully before nodding. Well, she says, I'll say this. Ryan looks curious. You came in here ready to talk, she continues. And whether people agree with you or not, they respect that. The audience claps again. Ryan smiles politely. Thank you. Whoopi leans toward the camera with her signature calm authority. You know what this proves, she says. Joy glances at her. What? Whoopi smiles. That conversation still works. The audience applauds. Ryan nods. That's all I was hoping for. Joy leans back with a small grin. And I was hoping for good television. The crowd laughs loudly. Looks like we both got what we wanted, Ryan replies. The applause swells again as the segment comes to an end. But the story doesn't end there. Because hours later, long after the cameras shut off and the studio lights dim, the conversation continues across the internet. News outlets begin publishing articles with headlines about the unexpected debate on The View. Commentators replay the exchange between Joy Behar and Ryan Gosling, analyzing every moment. Some call it one of the most thoughtful celebrity interviews in recent memory. Others call it a rare example of disagreement handled with respect. Clips rack up millions of views. Debates spark across social media. And suddenly, the moment that started as a simple morning interview has become something much bigger. A conversation people can't stop talking about. And now we want to hear from you. What did you think about this intense moment between Ryan Gosling and Joy Behar? Did Ryan handle the pressure the right way? Or do you think Joy's questions were exactly what needed to be asked? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, because your opinion might appear in our next video. And if you enjoy cinematic stories about shocking celebrity moments like this one, make sure you subscribe to Live Narratives and hit the like button so you never miss the next explosive story. Because sometimes, the most unforgettable moments on television are the ones nobody planned. Clapperboard.